You need to remember where you are if you're an Englishman sending a postcard from Shetland. This is the extreme tip of the British Isles, as many miles north of Edinburgh as London is south of it. It's more a southern outpost of the Arctic than a Scottish constituency, and the locals insist that it's called Shetland, not the Shetlands. I'm tempted to scribble a few of those nervous devices of early travellers, here be sea monsters, and for once it would be true. There are still whales here and seals, and some of the biggest populations of seabirds in the northern seas. Shetland's towering cliffs teem with puffins, gannets, kittiwakes. They're seabird skyscrapers and one of Britain's special contributions to the world's wildlife. Shetland isn't a single island. It's a labyrinth of islets, divided by channels and hidden harbours. 3,000 miles of ragged coast if you count every inlet. And above them rise the cliffs and rock stacks that make Shetland one of the great seabird refuges of the North Sea. It has the tangy, independent character of all island groups, but something extra. A wild, unpredictable beauty that its natives wouldn't swap for all the balminess of the South Seas.
I seek not the place where the palm tree grows or the brilliant insect hums. Mine is the land where the north wind blows, the land where the twilight comes, where the sky is bright with the northern light when the shortening day is done, and the icy wind speeds the migrant's flight to the southland and the sun. I long not for the spicy breeze or the jungle dark and green, but give me the land where the waters freeze and the hills are brown and lean, where beneath the stars on a frosty night the pony looks shaggy and warm, and the hare is wearing his winter white in time for the first snowstorm. For there, when the spring returns once more and the streams are free to run, I can wander barefoot along the shore in the rays of the midnight sun, and hear the beat of the raven's wings, like distant muffled drums. Yes, mine is the land where the crowberry springs, the land where the twilight comes.
Shetland's 60 degrees north. If you were to run your finger around the globe, we'd get to Churchill, Hudson Bay, and then the south tip of Alaska. So it's quite far north, but then it was saved by the Gulf Stream, the Atlantic Drift, God bless it.
You go as far north on the mainland of Britain as you can go. The usual thing to say is from going from Land's End to John O'Groats. That's only half the story, because when you get to John O'Groats, it's a big jump, 100 miles north, and you're in Shetland.
Wildlife galore. If we didn't think about wildlife, this is an urban concept. There's dichotomy between wildlife and our life, because wildlife to us was just part of the surroundings.
Shetland's colonies of gannets and auks have lived alongside the island's human population for centuries, even surviving the regular harvesting of their eggs. It was a hazardous business for the islanders as well, and the number of eggs taken seemed to make no difference to these vast bird cities. Most of the island's other wild creatures have rubbed along with the locals too. They're looked on as agreeable and useful citizens, and indicators of how the seasons are shaping up. They give clues about weather changes and approaching fish shoals, and about the state of the environment that Shetlanders of all species have to share.
The Shetland group is comprised of over 100 islets of varying sizes. Many of these are inhabited, but communication is often difficult.
I don't think anybody living on an island could feel isolated. There are so many ways off the island, but I'm afraid that if I lived in a city, then I would feel isolated.
We think it's quite a nice place, and we think it's quite picturesque, but maybe other people wouldn't think that. We're very exposed to the weather. We don't have very nice weather. We have quite a lot of gales, rain, and it can be pretty cold, although sometimes we do get a nice sunny day, but I'm afraid this year we haven't had very many.
The wind can be stupendous here. Force 8 gales or worse, on an average of 3 or 4 days each month. They can drive tides vertically up the cliffs and streaming across the flat land that made tree growth all but impossible.
Oh, the sea is awesome. The sea is awesome. And it is so many moods. Goes hand in hand with Mother Earth for me. But you have to stand in awe of it. You have to appreciate it can be a very dangerous thing as well as a very good friend.
The weather and the way the edges of land and water are constantly blurring produce a special kind of kinship between humans and wildlife. I reckon Shetlanders are halfway to being amphibious themselves.
Before the days of roads and cars, a man that didn't have a boat could go nowhere. And it's true to say that around this part of the world, every household had a boat, at least one. And that was only for, shall we say, for their own convenience and pleasure. That was like the car nowadays. You went visiting your friends in boats. Young lads went courting their girlfriends in boats. They went to the kirk in boats. You found churches built down by the seashore so that the congregation could come by boat. Little boats, handy, tremendously able sea boats they were, and everybody, every house had one. Well, I certainly enjoyed it, especially looking back now. We're as free as children could possibly be. We could roam for miles and miles and miles. Every human being you met was your friend. You knew them all. The only dangers was falling off a cliff or drowning in that voe there, or falling out the boat or something like that.
I remember being hounded out of bed at daybreak before I went to school and sent off down to the rocks with a rod and a basket or a kishie to catch the fish that would be our meal when we come back home from school. My grandfather was quite interested in all that went on around him, and that included the birds and animals that he had to live with on the croft. And I think that rubbed off on me more than perhaps anybody else. First time I saw an otter was on the shores just below the croft. As usual, I was playing on the shore. I always headed for the shores whenever I escaped from parental control. And I was well used with cats on the shore too, because cats visited the shore from time to time, because cats like fish and they follow fishermen. And our own cat used to follow my grandfather when he went fishing for saithe off the rocks. And he would always give her the first fish or two, and she'd eat what she could, and then she'd take one in her mouth and head for home. So I was playing on the shore, and I saw what I thought was a cat. I suddenly noticed it on a rock, eating a fish. I thought, well, funny, I haven't seen that cat before. And I said, puss, puss, or some such term. And to my horror, instead of coming towards him with its tail up in the air, it dived into the sea and disappeared. I was quite put out by this because I thought it would definitely drown. And later on, when I told this story to my parents, they laughed at me and said, well, what I'd seen was an otter.